What's up, Fromies? Welcome back to First Rounds on Me, a podcast about dating, relationships, love, sex, and everything in between. Today's guest is the illustrious Gabi Conti, aka the Croissant Girl. Gabi is a host, writer, producer, and journalist who has a knack for creating engaging content. She once went on 30 dates in 3 days. That's right, 30 dates in 3 days. And no, you sickos, you sicko. That does not mean she had sex with all 30. I don't even think it was any of them, but we'll get there. She's the author of this amazing book, 20 Guys You Date in Your 20s, a bitingly funny field guide to modern love from the woman who's dated them all. Gabi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's so funny. Croissant Girl. That's kind of like getting over. I had 7 or 8 million views on biting into a croissant and flicking off the camera.
That was so funny.
Making fun of an etiquette video of this girl that did the same thing.
So you went on 30 dates in 30 days?
30 dates in 3 days.
30 dates in 3 days.
Yeah.
So we just partnered with somebody in New York, Marin. Mm-hmm. And she's doing 28 dates in 28 days, and I thought it was so cool. And
amateur hour.
She's going viral. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
no, Marin, I think that's very cool.
30 in 3.
30,
Please
yeah, in 3 days.
Tell me how that went.
So 10 dates a day.
But how?
Like an hour a date. I think first dates, I don't know if you would agree with this, I think first dates should be an hour.
I think, will you get into that?
It's something we talk about a lot.
Because I think a lot of people, especially when you're meeting someone on a dating app, right? The first date is really more to make sure you have the connection that you had on the dating app. So why would you invest more than an hour in that? Because you could find out, in seconds if you have an attraction to them. But I think the second date is really where you should be pulling all the stops.
So obviously they had to know that.
Well, if it was up to me, I would have told every single person about it. But my editor at Cosmopolitan told me that she preferred me not to, because in her experience in doing similar things, when you do that, the person's on their best behavior.
Okay.
And the goal was to actually authentically find love, find a connection. And if I was doing it that way, it just wouldn't have been right. But because of the timing of it, of when I got the assignment to when I went on my first date and was scheduled to go on my first date, I only had 15 dates in the books from dating apps. So the other 15 were set up. So half of them knew about it, and then the other half didn't. But my rule was, if any of them asked me out on a second date, I would only accept if they were okay with what I had done.
So what do you mean assignment?
It was I wrote this was like a writing assignment.
This is like a how to lose a guy in 10 days kind of thing.
Yeah,
wow.
Pretty much, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah,
So
but I'll tell you how to lose a guy in 10 seconds. Tell him you have 29 more dates.
So out of the 30, how did most of them go? And
they were all like different degrees. I think it was like I had just gotten out of a relationship, and it was a great way to kind of get back in there. And I do believe my husband is technically my 31st first date. So I do think that in a way it led me to my husband, because it sped up the process that we normally do between relationships where we go on dates, because I got to go on all of them, and it was really so clear of what I wanted, what I didn't want. So some of them were awkward, as most first dates are. A lot of them, I had a couple that just didn't show up or flaked, but those counted because, when in Los Angeles, you have a lot of that too. And then some were really good. Some ended up being second dates. So
that's so awesome, because obviously our app is to get you on a real date, but that's what we tell people is, if it's a terrible date, you didn't really waste your time, because
right. If you do an hour,
you know what you want.
You do a drink, and it doesn't have to be alcohol, because it couldn't be alcohol for me. I would have had alcohol poisoning. So a lot of them were walks, coffees. I had a great fun date at Dave & Buster's. It was more about getting to know someone through an experience. And then I think usually I was the one that would reach out after a date, but I let them reach out. And if they reached out and were interested, I would then tell them about what happened.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and also First Rounds with Me works. I think you had said something about between the time you started texting your husband, or now husband, and messaging, you met pretty quickly, right?
Yes, and that was a big green flag for me, because I had learned that from doing the 30 dates in 3 days, because I had to make a plan. I had to be the one that was kind of pushing to meet, because I had a goal, right? So with my husband, I was kind of doing that, and some guys are really turned off by that. Some guys, if you are
initiating a date?
Yes, when you initiate a date, because some guys are just on there just to maybe sext, maybe whatever, have no intention of ever meeting you. So by doing that, you weed out those people. And my husband was happy that I had made the plan, because he actually is someone who's awful at making plans, which I learned when we started dating. And he's like this with his friends too. So if I had never pushed him to make the plan, we may have never met up.
So which app did you guys meet on?
We met on Bumble.
Wow. So
Yeah.
so you guys had matched. You had to make the first move because it's Bumble.
because it's Bumble anyway.
Right.
Right.
And then that first move was like you actually.
Yeah, and I can't remember if he might have like insinuated somehow that he wanted to meet up or something, and then sometimes that happens too, where someone's like, oh yeah, like they hint that they want to meet up with you, but then no one makes the move to like set a time or place.
You're like the perfect person to be on here to talk about like dating
But
apps and dating.
you know, it happens with my friends. Like a good friend of mine I saw was like in town, right? And I sent to my friend a message being like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. It's like, yeah, I'm here. I was like, well, we should definitely hang out sometime. And my friend's like, definitely. And then I was like, okay, we're never going to see each other
Right.
if I don't reach out and be like, okay, so when are you free?
Such an LA thing. Yeah.
And it's and so many of my friends, like girlfriends, guy friends, they do this. And then we never see each other.
Yeah. And I think that's what the world needs is not only dating apps, but just people who have more intention, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say things, and it's so much worse to say something that someone wants to hear and not do it than just be honest up front.
Right.
But yeah, in this dating world, it's just this instant validation and not following through. And that's why the whole world's kind of like, what the hell's going on with this whole
flaky.
dating culture?
Everyone's very flaky.
Yeah.
And also, it's a great way to find out if someone's actually interested in you or not. Because if you take the initiative and you say, okay, so if the guy, if you're messaging someone and you sense that there's an interest that they want to meet up, but no one's making a plan, and you make the move and you're like, okay, well, when are you free to meet up? And you get like a maybe or you get nothing, then stop wasting your time with that person, because if that's how they're showing you how they are in the beginning of the relationship, that's only going to get worse.
Yep.
So Hannah and I have a very, very similar story. Now, do you think that if you and your husband didn't make the plan pretty quickly, that he would have just got lost in the shuffle?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And two, I would even argue, you know, what's funny is that he was in an off and on relationship for years, but he was kind of off and on the dating apps. And similarly to me, I was kind of off and on the dating apps. I was like one of the early adapters of Tinder. Like I've been on dating apps for a while, like hence writing this book. And it's crazy because we may have messaged in the past and like never met up, you know, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We may have already lost each other in the shuffle, or we might have been at the same bar and we're just on our phones and never met each other.
Yeah, and you just never know what happened. What could happen if you just go on a date?
Yeah.
You know?
You might meet your husband, or you just might meet someone who's not right for you, but now you know they're not right for you, so the next time they pop up on another dating app, you won't engage.
I remember on probably 2 people I met before Hannah, we went on a few dates, right? And she kind of like pushed me to be more honest and upfront. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a big learning curve for me to like learn how I should act when I'm not into a woman and not just ghost, right? And like be really, you know, there and attentive. And I think that helped me. I went through another person that fell out to Hannah. But like going on these dates with these people, they were not a waste of time at all because I learned so much prior to Hannah.
Yeah. And hopefully they'll say the same thing about you.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do want to go back to the 1 hour thing because it's something we've heard from dating coaches and heard from people. Do you suggest more to have an out, but if it's going well, do you suggest to stay?
Of course, yeah, that would be crazy.
Okay.
Like if the date is going really, really well, and that's what happened with my husband. I was on that first date, I planned to be there for an hour. I even made plans with my friend to go hang out with her after. I thought the date was not going to go well because he was everything on paper against what I normally went for, not realizing, of course, you have to break your patterns to like find the one. Like obviously the other guys wasn't working, so I should be dating someone that on paper is the opposite of what I normally go for. And I had it, but it was going so well that I ended up, you know, going to the bathroom, texting my friend, being like, sorry, and it was one of those like never ending dates, which I think are always the best first dates.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you went on 3 dates in a row, right?
3 dates in a row. Yeah. It was him initiating because that's what I had picked up. I know I hate being like the girl shouldn't text first after, but for me, I feel like in the beginning, it's a great way to tell how into you a person is. So I let him initiate the first couple of dates, and it ended up working out because it was very clear that he was into me, where in the past, maybe I would be the one being like, I can't wait to see you again. And then I'd never hear from them again.
Yeah. And if 2 people are into each other,
it's obvious.
And you could kind of feel there's no game,
you
right?
Can tell there's no game. And like, Yeah, it was funny because before our third, or maybe it was our second date. No, before our third date, I tell my parents everything. I'm an only child, and I was telling my dad about him and how he asked me on a third date, and my dad's like, "Well, I don't think you should go 3 dates in a row. Like you're gonna look like a loser. Like you're busy, you're free on a Saturday night." And I'm like, "Well, he's also free on a Saturday night.
Right.
Is he a loser?" And my dad's like, "Well, I guess you could go on a date."
No, I want to ask you another question. So, meeting the 30 guys pretty quickly and then meeting your husband pretty quickly, as a woman, how do you feel safe? Like, do you feel safe doing this process?
I'm so glad you brought that up. At the time, I had some ways to help myself feel safe, but it's funny because a couple years later, I launched a podcast called Am I Dating a Serial Killer? And it's like kind of like tongue in cheek, but also serious, where I interviewed 10 survivors of these like crazy, almost criminal, sometimes in some cases was criminal dating stories that they told me. And I'd have an expert come on who worked with the FBI who would weigh in on like, were they dating a criminal and like what, and safety tips. And I realized from that how safe I thought I was while I was dating, I actually was not safe at all, which is kind of scary to think about in hindsight.
So, do you have any sort of tips on how women specifically, because that's more of an issue, can feel safe?
But men can be victims too.
Of course.
I think the biggest thing is that we are so quick to give away a lot of personal information about ourselves right off the bat. And the safest way you can online date is to stay on your platform until after you meet the person and feel safe and comfortable with them. Because if you're on the platform, it helps you, when you give someone your number, they can find a lot of other personal information out about you, maybe get your address. Also, I think a lot of people think, or a lot of women think, that their date should pick them up at their place for a first date. Absolutely not. If it's a stranger, like, I don't care, screw chivalry. Like, definitely do not have your date pick you up at your house so they know where you live. You should always meet them somewhere. You should meet them somewhere that you feel comfortable at. I used to have like a couple of bars that I knew like the staff and the bartenders at. I also learned that if you're at a bar and you ever feel uncomfortable, there was a trend going around about like, if you order an angel shot, like that's a code for how a bartender could help you out in a situation. I did research on that separately prior to the podcast, where I went to my local bars and asked them if they knew what the angel shot was, and like most of them had no idea.
Wow.
But I did learn the best way to get out of a bad situation is most bars have a kitchen and the kitchen goes into the outdoor alley. So there's always a back entrance through the kitchen. So if you feel unsafe and you can't get attention of the manager, you always can walk through the kitchen and get out back that way.
Wow. So this is super interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess you touched on a lot of things.
I know I talked in
No,
circles.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
You touched on a lot of things, and I don't think that what we're trying to do hurts any of that, right? Like with us, I always want women to feel safe, right?
Yeah,
That's why
of
I always
course.
ask.
Yeah.
And our whole premise is to meet somebody pretty quickly, but on the app, we know where you're going, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we have the option of like, hey, pick somewhere where you both feel safe, where the women feel safe, right? And then, while you're on that date, if you do feel comfortable, we have alerts that we send out, or you could text a friend or talk to the bartender.
Yep.
So it's like just understanding and getting more knowledge from a woman of like, yes, don't give your number out or don't give your address out, but it's okay initially to go to that place, feel them out, and then you have your ways of safety there.
And a big thing that I wish more people would do is the value of reporting someone on a dating app who harassed you. Most women do not do this. And I see it all the time on like TikTok. There are all these like horror stories about these like awful dates people went on. And I always am like, did you report this to the dating app? And no one does. But doing that is really, being on a dating app, I think, is a privilege. And if you are reporting someone who is harassing you, who assaulted you, anything like that, you also should go to the police. But doing that on the dating app gets that person removed from that dating app, might prevent them from getting on other dating apps, might save other women.
Yeah, and to me, starting this, like, that is literally the A, B, and C most important things to me, is like building that community of people who have that privilege of being on first rounds with me. Because if everyone acts respectful on there, it makes the app so much easier, because
course.
obviously safety is a big issue, right? But yeah, I think that's very insightful stuff.
And it's scary. Because you don't even think about it. Like, this is what I learned from my podcast. If someone kisses you without your consent on a date, that's technically assault. You technically could go to the police and you could report that.
Yeah.
And in one case on our show, that happened to one of our survivors, and that guy went on to actually murder someone.
Really?
Whoa.
So the same person that assaults you on a date without consent could be a murderer.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it takes
And-
that same kind of like, I don't care about rules,
Right. That
Yeah.
kiss is a gateway.
I'm above the law. Like,
Yeah.
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 Oh,
And we are
smart
in
what
the
you did there.
process.
I'm spilling all over myself.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have to-
Yeah. It's the cup is spilling. I had to take off the great wellness tea, by the way.
So I kind of want to shift a little bit, but it's going to be kind of a broad question
Sure.
and then a specific question.
Okay.
So I'm kind of on like a bit of a personal tirade against like TikTok therapist and meme
me
culture.
too. I could get into this with you.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people like will see a meme or TikTok and like let that make a very important decision in their lives, whether like break up with somebody or like drop your friends because they don't support. And it's like, no, chill the fuck out. But one thing I wanted to ask you was going back to your husband one more time on
Yeah.
that first
Oh, yeah,
date,
sure.
right? I know it didn't go well for the first like hour or so.
Well, were you there?
I was the waiter.
Were you the bartender?
You guys gave me a great tip. Yeah. But just for people, because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I know within like 4 seconds if I like this person, or I
Yes.
want to sleep with this person, or if this is my husband or not, or wife. Not just saying women say
No.
that, of course. No, but like I think it's important because it didn't go well, and you
Yes.
kind of were very.
So I definitely was attracted to my husband within like the first couple of minutes of meeting him. But there were a couple of things he did that really annoyed me. But I believed I could, it was like a combination of the read I got on him was he's really attractive, and I could tell he had a good heart and a good soul. That's like something I just got off right. My spidey senses were not going off like danger. They were going off like, oh, this is a good guy. Like I could tell that. But there were a couple of things he was doing that was really annoying me. The first was I would ask him a question and he would not ask me the question back. He would just answer the question.
So when
Drives me
people ask
insane.
me what my red flag is,
Yeah.
I say I ask a lot of questions to make that person feel important. If they don't at least pepper me with a few,
yeah.
I'm just like,
They don't care, right?
yeah.
So it was that. And then the other thing was our date was drinks. He ordered food, which is fine, but he ordered food for himself and then didn't offer me anything.
Did he offer to order it or just like he just?
This is the other insane thing is he asked me what looked good on the menu. So he went about it like we were ordering food for us and then just proceeded to eat the entire thing by himself and not even offer me a bite.
Did he ask if you were hungry?
No, he did not. He didn't ask if I was hungry either. So after the first round, even though I found him attractive and I felt there was some good in him, and actually if I didn't feel there was any good in him, I wouldn't have said this. I would have just left, right?
Out the kitchen, right?
Right, yeah, go through the kitchen. I said to him, hey, if you don't start asking me questions about myself after we're done with this round, I'm gonna leave. And I went to the bathroom and texted my friend, and then not that I was into him at that time. I was like, yeah, this guy's, he looks like Brendan. My husband looks like Brendan Fraser, who's, now I'm saying his name wrong. It's Fraser. Anyway.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
My husband looks like a young Brendan Fraser. And
Not in the well, right?
What?
Not in the
Not
well?
in the whale.
Okay.
Like in like
The
prime.
Mummy.
The
Yeah.
Mummy. Not even like Blast from the Past
Ooh,
or
okay.
So I texted my friend. Yeah, how's the date going? Really cute. He looks like a young Brendan Fraser. But he's not asking me any questions about myself. And if he doesn't start doing that, I'm gonna leave. So I come back. And it was like I was walking in onto a completely different date. He was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm on 2 hours of sleep. Like nothing I'm doing is making sense. I was going to cancel this date, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to meet you. Let's start again. And then I called him out on the whole food thing and everything. He's like, yeah, I was just so hungry. I hadn't eaten anything
So
all
in
day.
his defense, I have two things.
Yeah.
One, people are really nervous on a first date.
That too. And
right?
I'm not, at that point, I wasn't anymore because I was like dating pro, right?
And what was my other one?
Oh,
I just had
sorry.
a
I
blank.
interrupted you.
No. Wait. He's really nervous. And oh crap. What did you say before that?
He was that he was really hungry and he hadn't eaten anything, and he was tired. He was on 2 hours of sleep, and he almost canceled the date because he was so tired. But he didn't want to miss the opportunity to meet me.
Well, just to my original
Yeah.
point, like people are really nervous on a first date.
Yeah.
So, I think self-awareness.
Yes.
That was which is
Yes.
more important than that. That's like you going back and instead of him being defensive
Yeah.
and being like who are you to tell me how to act, I think that's such a turn on when someone's like, "Oh my God, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Like, how can I?"
Which to me was a huge green flag because that
Right.
could have gone two ways, right? That could have gone, well, fuck you, and like left the restaurant and left me with the bill of his expensive dinner that I didn't want to order. Like they could have easily gone that way. And I think, yeah, and I that was to me like a great. Wasn't expecting it to be a test, but he responded to that perfectly.
Yeah, and I think in a way, it kind of is the perfect first date, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you gave somebody like some type of issue and saw their reaction, right? Where that normally doesn't happen on a first date. It's usually two people acting on their best behavior.
Yeah, he wasn't on his best. I was on mine. Well,
And the
to a
fact that
point.
you guys were able to have like a difficult kind of conversation for a first date
Mm-hmm.
and to move really past it with green flags,
Yep.
it kind of reassured both of you like this could be something real.
Right. And then it ended up just being like, also it set the tone for what would later be a very healthy relationship.
Yeah,
Like,
being very honest and direct.
like I this sounds bad, but he was the first relationship I've ever been in where I never like lied about anything. And I don't mean like lie about like big things like, or like omission, like things you don't tell a partner because you want to like appear the best version of yourself, like early on to dating. Like I told him like everything and he was so accepting of everything I told him. And I think it created a very like healthy, like honest place that we've
Yeah, a good
since
foundation.
still kept in our relationship.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's super helpful for people because a lot of times I think we can write people off if we don't get that like amazing experience right away. And you gave them a second chance, and yes, there were good signs that caused you to do that. But
Yeah.
I think it's important for people. Then I have these 3 lessons that you said you learned from the 30 dates, which I think can really relate to the audience
What's your
as well.
source on this?
Hey, I tell you, he does his homework.
Deux mois, actually. They got me.
Deux mois.
Deux mois. Okay, so number 1, if it's not abundantly clear that the person is into you, it's not worth pursuing that.
Yeah.
Right? Do you still
I still agree because that is what happened is that I kind of, for the first time, I changed my behavior. Normally, I would be the one reaching out. I let them reach out. And I think I could tell off the bat if people were into me or not because the ones that weren't reaching out weren't into me.
And we always say, I mean, it's not a universal rule, but like me personally, like if I was ever into a woman and to any degree, I would initiate and be like, hey, like I would love to figure out how to see you again.
Yeah.
No matter how busy I was,
And I think early on that's important, but I think later in the relationship you don't have to do that. But I think for like the first 3 dates to like let the other person, especially if your pattern is always being the one reaching out and not getting results, like maybe try flipping that.
Yeah, and on our first date, I made a second date before we left each other to show her, like, hey, I want to take you out again.
Which is great. That's more guys should do that.
Yeah, because along with that, you say that a lot of people overthink. We overthink what we do, and that's a perfect example. It's like, oh, should I wait to text because I don't want to seem needy, or the Saturday night thing?
Yeah.
But you said you should kind of go with your gut.
Go with your gut, be genuine, and then also like, why would you want someone that doesn't respond to the genuine version of yourself?
Which, perfect segue to number 2. Be fully yourself.
Yeah.
We pretend to be different people or the best version of ourselves. And you said you were 110%.
I was 110%
yourself.
myself, and I think my husband was maybe too much himself before I called him out. But I do think, I think you should be yourself because why would you pretend? Because then eventually your true colors are going to show. And I find maybe I did that sometimes with dating, but I feel like I had also dated guys that came off as this perfect person. And then they ghosted me or treated me like crap. And it's like, oh, wait, that's who they always were. They were just hiding that.
Yeah.
I feel like you watched the show because we're touching on everything that we've talked about in a way better way. One thing we always say is like we always try and act like the perfect person that we think the other person wants us to be, which is the worst thing to do.
Yeah.
And A, you were your true self on the date, but B, like your true self will eventually come out and you're going to let somebody down because you were never your real self on the first few dates.
And the same thing goes with curating your dating app profile. So many people do all these like glossy filtered photos or photos that they're told like this is the photos you need on your dating app to like attract the best guys. And also I think on the other end when you're swiping, if you see a profile that's like too heavily curated, that means everyone else is also swiping right at that person and they have so many messages and they're not, to me, I don't think they're worth pursuing. I would always go for the ones that felt a little bit more like organic. I mean, my husband's profile wasn't really great because he didn't know.
No guys are.
Still doesn't. The one thing from that is he still cannot take a decent photo to save his life.
None of us
can. So, but that's like whatever. But that's a big thing too, because I think a lot of people pretend, and that's why you get that whole thing like you look nothing like your photos. It's like, well, yeah, my photos are like heavily filtered and they're like headshots. Like your photos should look like you, and you should be honest and be yourself in your, if there's like prompts or anything, like really write from your heart.
Yep.
You'll get less matches, but the matches you get will be higher quality.
Yeah. I think also like we've done 20 of these podcasts. I'm loving every second of it because we're going to talk to really interesting people and I'm learning so much. And I think the thing that I've learned the most over the past few months is that there's all these rules and guidelines, but like they're just guidelines. Like don't ever feel like you have to like follow them or, you know, like you said, 1 hour rule. Like we've had dating coaches that do have a hard stop, even if it's going well.
See, that's then that's not being authentic to who you are. Like this dating advice is meant to be more like suggestions. They're not meant to be like rules.
Right.
And I see that, yeah, we're talking about TikTok dating experts, like literal biggest pet peeve. And I write for Giddy, which is it's like the world's largest sexual health platform, but we also do like dating articles and stuff. And I my favorite thing to do is to take something that's trending on TikTok and debunk it. And having real experts, and a lot of times psychiatrists, therapists, people with actual like degrees, the amount of evidence they're like, this is why this is bullshit, is almost always overpowering. And the TikToker never defends themselves. I reached out to them. Sorry, she's too busy. Too busy doing what?
Yeah.
Like I'm giving you free press right here and you can't stand up and defend your
Because
thing.
it's usually just regurgitated stuff that they've seen someone else do. And just like I said, the meme culture that just like permeates like
it's
this
crazy.
whole.
And I hate the four signs you should run right away. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because then you would have ran right away.
Yeah, I would have. It has to come. I think the biggest dating rule is to trust your gut and go with what feels right and follow your heart. And like, I think listening to people and following advice that doesn't feel right to you is very problematic.
Yeah, and I think if you can, it's very hard. If you cannot, unsolicited dating advice is literally the worst advice ever. And if you could kind of keep it with that person and you guys figure it out together until you really need to go to an outside source, like that's where the best answers are going to be, you know?
Yeah, and also that dating should be easy within the first couple of like months. Even the first year of dating should be easy. So much of this advice is to help people that are like, I don't know, like he's not texting me, like I don't like having all these problems. I would argue that you shouldn't be having all of these problems in the beginning of the relationship. That should come later. And that's like the ultimate red flag to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to close the loop, number 3, which, because I think these are super important because I know we're believers of a first date drink, not dinner.
Yeah.
I know you are too, or an activity,
Firm
a walk,
believer.
you know, something.
Firm believer, yeah.
So you say don't put so much pressure on a first date. And I think, you know, especially if it's like a nice dinner or a fancy dinner, or you're like, it's a whole production, then that can really just add to the pressure and make you kind of on edge and not able to relax and enjoy yourself.
And also not see the person for who they really are. I call it bachelor-lighting, like gaslighting, but the Bachelor. Because if your first date is like the quality of something you would see on the show The Bachelor, then you risk the chance of falling for someone because of the quality of the date and not the quality of the person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think
Never
that
thought of
happens
it
a
that
lot.
way.
That's happened to me before.
Absolutely. Let's see what else we got here.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but remember how I told you I was doing the sleeping in 2 different beds article?
Oh, yeah. That was Giddy. And
That's his main question.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, someone sent me one today. Did I send that to you?
No.
About Carson Daly has been doing it for a couple of years.
Yeah,
And
I
he said
saw
it saved
that.
his life.
He said it
Saved
saved
his
life.
marriage?
But it's
Marriage,
funny
not life,
because
but-
also, who else did it?
Also, not someone. My brother sent it to me, so thank you, Ron. I can't say someone.
Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie did it, and now they're divorced. Tim Burton and Helena Bonham Carter, I'm butchering her name. They also did it, and they're no longer together. And Kourtney Kardashian and Scott Disick did it, and they're no longer together.
All right,
so
now you're just cherry picking.
So
it goes both ways. Or you're a separate bed
He's
sleeper.
big on it, and I'm not big against it, but I'm against it, obviously.
Yeah, but then
I
it
was
ended up
defending-
working out.
For me.
Yeah, but then you ended up switching your ways.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
he doesn't
Oh,
do
sorry,
separate.
No, I'm for sleeping in the same bed.
you're for sleeping in the same
He's
bed.
against
Sorry, you're
it.
against. Okay,
But, yeah, I mean...
but you weren't always for.
No.
Prior to your fiance.
Yes, prior to meeting her, which
Yeah.
maybe will change. I don't know.
But you're single right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I agree with you. I think it's about finding the right person.
This is going to sound so cheesy.
Yeah.
Like, so cheesy. But, like, in the morning, even this morning, when I wake up next to her...
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is so nice. Like, it's so
Aw.
nice. It really is. Just like
Yeah.
having someone next to you where I'm very comfortable, right? If I
Yeah.
wasn't comfortable, I'd be like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm so comfortable. It's nice to
sleep
feel her
better.
energy. Yeah, it's really sweet.
Yeah, I look. I am not. It's not a deal breaker for me. It's something I would want to explore. But like, look, if Hannah had to wake up at 4 o'clock every morning for work, you know.
I mean, yeah, I wake up way earlier than she
What I'm
wants
saying,
to
if
be
she had
up.
to wake up 3 hours earlier than you or something, like, and you had different sleep hours. I'm just saying, if logistics,
I just think it
don't
takes away
match
from
up.
like just a free flowing, spontaneous, full life. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons. I think there's pros and cons to it.
Well, speaking to experts on it, and these are like, therapists and all that, a lot of them actually were, and also a divorce lawyer who I also interviewed for this. There's a lot of danger in sleeping apart. It ends up like creating a big drift in the relationship, a big emotional, because you're on different schedules. You become like roommates, and that's always the first red flag when someone's heading towards divorce. They say, we feel like roommates. We don't feel like we're in a relationship anymore. But I do think the sleeping separately is more of a red flag once you're like in a committed relationship and you make the choice of going from sleeping in the same bed to sleeping separately. That's when it becomes problematic. If you're single and you're sleeping separately now, that's not really a problem. But I do think that when you get into a relationship, you're probably going to want to sleep together.
Yeah, and look, this is obviously a theory, right? I have not tested. I mean, I've slept with women before,
Yeah.
and been okay.
Yeah.
But this is a theory, so I have not tested it out. And again, I think everything is so nuanced. Like let's say the sleep. I don't want to harp on this because I always fucking talk about this, but let's say the sleep is so horrible that if you sleep in separate beds, it makes the rest of the relationship that much better because you're
Right.
both well rested. You both feel great the next day, every day.
But so in order for that to work, your relationship needs to be so solid.
Of course.
And that's usually not the case when someone decides to switch.
Right,
into going-
exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the reasons you're saying maybe there was issues and they're like, oh, I don't want to sleep next to this person anymore, which is obviously.
But it usually starts with an excuse. It starts with, oh, well, there's like our baby keeps coming into bed, or we have separate schedules, or I like to sleep in colder temperatures than my partner. And it starts with that. And then they sleep separately. And then they realize that that's the tip of the iceberg of all the other problems they have in their relationship.
Sure.
yeah, and I just played it out in my head of like, when you go to sleep, like it's usually when like you're going to be intimate with your partner in a free flowing way.
Yeah.
And if you're both like, okay, like usually at 11 o'clock we both go to our beds, we both have to make this move before we both go to our beds, and
Yeah.
of course it's gonna happen, but I just feel it's not as easy.
It's that too, and also just like being on the same wavelength, like winding down at the same time, waking up around the same time. I mean, I wake up earlier than my husband, and it's still like I wake up in the same bed as him, and it creates kind of like a togetherness that we, sometimes don't have during the rest of the day with our crazy schedules. So
I'm really happy for you guys. I'm really, really happy. It's amazing. So a couple kind of recurring questions.
Yeah.
We've already talked about what a good first date looks like in terms of like logistically.
yeah,
So what qualities, before you met your husband, what qualities, actually, let's start here. What is something or some things that you've done a complete 180 on? Like maybe from your single days that you were always either for or against, and now being in a happy, healthy relationship, like you've maybe flipped on.
in like how I act in a relationship.
Or things you thought were the case and then you experienced it and you're like, oh, that's actually wrong. Like, is there anything that's really changed in terms of like what you thought the expectation versus
of like what my expectations of a relationship is.
anything that's changed, like going from single to a real relationship.
Well, I don't know. I think something that was kind of big, and maybe this was just like I saw my parents be like this, was that I always for a while thought like I needed to be doing the same thing as my partner, like work wise, and that we needed to always be like brainstorming with each other and like bouncing ideas off of each other, because that's what my parents are like. But my parents also have like a very like we're Italian, so like a very like passionate, like there was a lot of arguing growing up.
With your hands too.
Yeah, the hands, like a lot of that. And they're still in a happy marriage to this day, but I guess I realized like there didn't need to be yelling all the time. And my husband's from the Midwest. He's very mild-mannered. He's very calm, like almost too calm to a fault. So going in like thinking that you always needed to like fight about it or talk very loud about things, and then realizing that actually no, that's really exhausting, and you don't need to. It's less about working on something together. It's more about having your partner's back and being on their team. And if they're upset, you're upset because they're upset,
Yeah.
and offering, and also like finding out this is kind of more what I had to communicate to my husband. It's like, I don't always need advice. Sometimes I just need to vent. And
I think that's the hardest thing that men don't understand.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm the worst at it. Where, Hannah will have an issue, and like she's telling me, and in my head, as she's telling me, I'm thinking of all the solutions, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, why don't you do this? And it gets her more mad, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. She's like, what do you mean you're not gonna say anything? I'm like, what do you want me to do? And she's like, just let me speak. And I'm like, all right, fine.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a thing, like, that maybe when your partner is like fired up about something, that the actual best response is, what do you want right now? Do you want advice, or do you want me to like, just let you vent? And like, I don't know. I guess I never really realized that was an option.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, certainly. Yeah, it was kind of a weird question, but like, maybe like,
what would I do differently if I was single now dating, or was it like what I learned about relationships that I thought was the truth when I was single, but now I know.
Well, here's something for me,
person.
right?
Yeah.
So like, and maybe it's not like either single versus relationship, but like one thing I've been learning through all these podcasts and reading more is that like, in order to make a relationship work, like you actually have to do these like the steps. So you have to do like these exercises, and like if you want it to be really good, from what I think, right? From what like a lot of times we see like the fairy tale and the Hollywood stories, and like once you actually get into a relationship and you realize that like you have to do like these little things all the time. You have to keep, love is a verb also, right? It's an action. It's constant practice and reinforcement. And I guess I never really thought about it, maybe just being like younger and immature, and not really having been in a super serious relationship.
Right.
But like stuff like that, like is anything, that's kind of more what I meant.
Because you think like growing up from what we watch that like the happy ending is like finding the person, but really that's just the beginning, because all these other things pop up and happen once you're in a relationship, and like how to navigate that. And that like relationships are work, but I also don't believe they're like so much work. I think there's like a fight. Like I was like, you have to like fight for your partner like every day and like prove that you want to be in this relationship. It's like, no, I
Wrong
think it's
person probably.
I think that it's more of like you choose to be in that relationship. You're always learning, you're always growing, you're always there for each other, but also that you need to grow as an individual as well. I think so many of my past relationships in my 20s, I kind of like became the person that I thought my partner wanted me to be, or we became a unit, we became a couple, and I stopped doing the things I loved. And I think you always need to be flourishing and kind of treating your own stuff and working on yourself so you can be a stronger partner.
You have something?
Yeah, so your parents are still together, I assume?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Italian, obviously.
Italian.
Yeah, and I feel, because mine, same thing,
Yeah.
right? I feel like they gave me like this, such a beautiful experience from a family standpoint, and from them, where it was like, they played these old school Italian roles that they both loved, right? Whereas like my dad did his yelling, was the head of the household, and my mom, had the last say, but like just appeased him to make him shut up. And it was just like so nice. But then, in today's world, when you get out of that, it's like, it's not as easy and structured.
Well, my mom was actually more of the yeller than my
dad. My dad was my mom was just like, okay.
So it was always that. But they were always, they just had these very heated conversations all the time, which was not arguing or not fighting. It was just like, that's how they spoke to each other about their ideas.
So I saw this quote yesterday, and what you just said about like always working on yourself made me think about it. So I don't know if you know Neil Strauss. He's one of my favorite writers. So he wrote this quote that said, "Not until you can be alone without loneliness are you ready for a relationship."
Yes.
Do you like that?
I love that, because that's exactly what happened to me. When I met my husband, I was super content with being single. It was like the first time in my life that I realized being single isn't a curse. It's actually really empowering. It's so nice to kind of just be in charge of your day, of your life, make decisions based on what you want to do and not what someone else wants to do. And I had really like embraced I didn't feel lonely. And there was like, obviously there was a big, my 30 dates in 3 days was was Memorial Day weekend. And I met my husband Labor Day weekend. So there was like a whole summer in between there of like dating, not dating, working on myself, spending time with friends, spending time with family, whatever, before I was kind of at the point. But like my life was so full when I met my husband. So it was like an active choice to kind of like, I was giving up being like, I was giving up my like my loneliness, which I relished in, to be with him.
Aloneness, probably not loneliness. Yeah.
Aloneness. But loneliness doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing. It just means you're alone. You know, you're alone. Well, I guess aloneness is better than loneliness.
I don't know. I'm just
perfectly lonely, as John Mayer saying. I was perfectly lonely when I met my husband.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah, and I would say that like at least for me, it was not like you forced yourself to get into a relationship, but it was kind of like same thing. Like you were so good being alone, but you met someone that was going so well with where you're like, okay, I have to make this decision because it's going so well. Instead of it being like, oh, I have to make a decision if I like this person or not and be with them. It's kind of like forces you to be in the relationship because it's going so well.
Well, that and also that my husband made my life better. And
Right.
so many other guys I dated prior caused stress to my life about like, what does this text mean? Like, you know, what is like, just like.
What is his name, by the way?
My husband, Darren.
Darren.
Yes.
Where was you and Darren's first date?
At Employees Only, which is actually a really
In
great.
New York or in LA?
No, in LA, which is a great first date spot. If you sit at the bar and
we love it there, yeah.
they have a great happy hour, the golden hour. I don't work for them, but it's like right when they open. I think happy hours are amazing first dates if you can get off early enough because then you could confidently either treat or pay for yourself and not feel like, you know, you just spent all this money.
Yeah. It's funny. What you were just saying kind of reminds me of the Shawshank Redemption. Are you guys familiar with it? Right.
Of course.
At the Red, Morgan Freeman's character, like he always goes into the parole hearings and he's like saying how sorry he is and like and apologizing and how like he's reformed by the system, and then every time gets rejected, and it's not until he like doesn't give a fuck and like he's just like whatever, I'm staying here for life, then like that's when he gets out. So it's kind of similar to what you're saying with like, you know, you're
Although I didn't think being single was like being a prisoner.
no, not like that, but like you're real, like not you, but a lot of times we are like, people are like reeling for like a relationship, like they always looking,
yes.
and it's not until you like
You're
whatever,
not looking.
then you like feel, then it kind of changes, like you don't have needy energy, and like you can just live your life, and then you'll meet somebody, and then it kind of works. It seems to work out, but it's because you're like very free.
And I've also gone on dates with guys that had that thirsty, needy, like I just need to get in a relationship. I don't care who it's with, you'll do, and that is like, and I've probably come off like that in dates too. And so when you see that, you're like, oh man, I never know.
So what does love mean to you?
I think love is really having someone's back. It's choosing someone. It's being there for them. It is a verb. I agree with that. I think it's the actions. And I just think it's so funny that door just has love everywhere on it behind you.
You purposely did that.
What is love? But no, I think it's a partnership. It's companionship. It's having someone's back, and it's choosing someone, and it's showing them that you chose them every day.
Love that.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about this a lot, but like, what do you think are the most important things for like a happy, healthy, successful, long-term relationship?
I mean, communication for sure, honesty. It's not, a therapist told me once, it's not what you fight about, it's how you fight, which I think is really key. So making sure that you're like really taking a step back when you're having an argument and being like, what is this argument really about? Is it about that he never loads the dishwasher, or is it about a bigger thing that you feel like he doesn't respect your time because he doesn't have the time to load the dishwasher, but you do. Also, you have a dishwasher. You're so lucky. Like, why are we not? You know, it's.
How do you guys fight, you and Darren?
I usually we it's more conversations, and it's more like I call something out, and then I mean I think I fall into a pattern where sometimes I feel like I'm nagging him because we've had the same conversation over and over again. But if only he did it the first time, then I wouldn't have to nag. So.
Are either of you walker awayers?
No, actually, we usually like deal with the problem.
Oh, that's
in the
really
moment.
good.
Yeah. So
I'm a
that's
walker
really good.
away to cool off.
But that's good. But as long as you come back.
Yeah.
You don't just like go get a
I'm like,
pack
I need
of
5
cigarettes
minutes
and
because
never
I don't
come.
want to say anything that
Right.
I'm
No,
gonna
it's
regret.
good to think about what you need to
back
say.
in 10 minutes
I'm
and
not.
we'll
I'm
talk.
very like, this is what I'm thinking right now. And, you know, sometimes the Italian temper comes out. But
Yeah, it's funny. You guys as Italians,
Yeah.
I am of Irish descent. I don't have anything to do with Ireland. I don't celebrate. But the way the Irish people handle shit is that you just bottle it up,
yep.
and then when the milk spills,
Then you.
then you just lose your shit.
Yeah,
But it has nothing
yeah.
to do with the milk spilling.
We wasps do that too from Connecticut.
Okay.
So I relate to that as
okay.
well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But yeah, that's why it's important to like
Yep.
chill and handle your shit when it pops up, like
Yep.
the actual thing that's bothering you, and not just like let it all come out.
Right,
And
right.
you drown your spouse in the bathtub. or
No,
something.
okay,
Yeah.
none of that.
Yeah, none of that. So we'll circle back to some stuff, but we'll do a quick rapid fire
Sure.
round,
Oh
and you
gosh.
can answer these as fast or as slow as you want. Favorite drink for a first date?
My go-to drink is just I love like a chilled glass of Sauvignon Blanc, but the wine list has to be good. If it's not a good wine list and it's more of a bar, then it's probably going to be a vodka soda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite date spot in LA?
I think employees only, honestly. I think
Yeah.
it's such a sexy, cute place.
It is.
Have you been to the one in New York?
No, I might have like years
one in New
ago,
York
but I
is so
don't
cool.
remember it. So I have to go back.
Oh,
yeah.
it's a must.
Yeah.
Favorite podcast?
Celebrity Memoir Book Club.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite romantic comedy?
This is a hard one. When Harry Met Sally.
Nice. That's 2 in a row.
Yeah.
2 in a row, but because of that, I watched it for the first time last week.
Oh,
First
wow.
time, great
Holy
show.
shit.
It's a
Great.
flawless.
It's incredible,
a flawless
yeah.
movie. It's just so well done, and it still holds up today, which I think is the ultimate test of a rom-com.
Yes.
And the story is not. It makes you think. It's like, oh, I thought it was going to go this way, but it didn't.
Yep.
Every turn.
And
I
the
was like, this is
couples
amazing.
talking to like the camera about like how
Oh,
they
it's so cute,
met.
yeah.
I kind of have that in my book with the whole ask someone else because I interview couples of like how they made their relationship work. So,
Okay.
Love
Yeah,
that.
such a great movie.
such a great movie.
Favorite quote?
Favorite
Or maybe
quote.
something you kind of live by? Or...
Okay, well, actually, this was in our vows, and this is also a John Mayer quote. It's I'm not looking for Roman candle, Hollywood hot pink love. I'm looking for I got your back love. And I think that's like I think that was like a big aha moment for me in dating, and it resonated with Darren and I when we were dating. And I just think I think that's what it is. It's like, it isn't all about like the pomp and circumstance or like, you know, the bachelor lighting or these big dates. It's really about just like having someone who, you know, will be there for you and will always have your back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Marry, fuck, kill.
Oh God.
1997 Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay.
2007 John Mayer. And any time Brad Pitt. Dealer's choice. You can pick.
Fuck Leo, marry John Mayer, and I dump. I don't really care about Brad Pitt.
Really? I was
really
trying to
don't.
come up with a third, and I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
feel
those
like
are
Brad-
because but also like I don't. Yeah, Leo then would have been great. Leo
So
now
you like the
is,
boyish
Yeah,
Leo.
Leo now is like so
barely
sad.
legal Leo.
So sad.
Yeah, okay.
But actually, maybe I wouldn't want to marry 2007 John Mayer because I did read Jessica Simpson's memoir, and 2007 John Mayer sounds like a nightmare.
Okay, what year is your favorite John Mayer?
Well, that's my favorite look of John Mayer. But I think John Mayer currently, not that I'm married, but John
Of
Mayer
course.
now is like very woke, and I feel like he gets it. And I think that I think he's on his way, if not already, ready to finally be like a partner for someone and not be. I think he's gotten over his fuckboyness.
He makes a big cameo in My Place or Yours with Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, wait, he does? I just watched
First
that.
scene. First scene is him for like 5 minutes.
Wait, why can't I? Wait, are you? No, it's not that movie. I know what movie you're thinking about. It's not My Place or Yours. You're thinking about BJ Novak's movie.
No.
John Mayer's in that for like 5 minutes in the beginning of BJ Novak's movie. I just watched My Place or Yours. It's a
I'm
phone,
telling you.
It's a phone call. They're having a phone call.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
I watched
you're
the
right.
first 5
Wait,
minutes
maybe
of that.
you're
You're
right.
thinking of BJ Novak's movie.
Yes, you're right.
Yes, I was like, I
That's
I
with,
saw that on the play. It's BJ Novak, and it's like,
yes, you're right.
It's like
you're
he has
right,
a
right.
podcast.
Yes. My bad.
Yes, that is. I was like, no. I was like, John Mayer did 2 cameos in 2 movies in a year,
I don't know.
and
what
he's
I'm
on
talking about.
tour. When does he sleep?
Last question for rapid fire. Top 3 John Mayer songs.
Oh God, this is really hard.
You have 5 seconds.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Neon. Bold as Love. The cover of Bold as Love because it contains that banter that we just went over, and Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. I don't love those. I really need to think about this
That's okay.
more.
If you
I
if
don't
you
love
have
that. I
if
don't
you
love
by
that.
the end of the podcast, if you have like a number one
A number
overall,
one?
you can tell us if
Okay.
it's different from any of
Okay.
these. So yeah, maybe go back to this real quick in terms of like the TikTok therapist. What do you think are some of the most common misconceptions that you see floating around the internet all the time?
Well, there's like this one. This is just off the top of my head. There's this crazy lady who has this lemon meringue pie theory that she's like, if you are on a date with a guy and he's talking about how much he loves lemon meringue pie, don't make it for him. Every girl is going to make it for him, and even if you're the best chef in the world, do not make him or buy him this pie because you'll stand out if you don't do that. And I'm like, what kind of trickery is this? Like, this goes back to the whole be authentic, be yourself. like I hate these ones that are just teach women to manipulate men. Like that's not what it's about. Like be honest, be yourself, and if you really do like lemon meringue pie and you know how to make it, or you want to be thoughtful and buy it for him, do that.
Exactly. If
But
you're the best baker,
yeah,
bake the shit
why
out
would
of
you
it.
not? Why would
Do
you?
you bake lemon meringue pie?
I don't. No, you do bake it, but I'm not
Okay.
really much of a baker.
Yeah,
but,
if you're not, then go find the best
but
one
also
in the
like
city.
insert anything, like insert, whatever you do. I do think the only truth in that is like maybe don't do that so soon into dating. But if you are dating someone and they mention that they really like something, why would you withhold that? That's just insane.
Yeah.
I do want to circle back on something.
Yeah.
Having your back type of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that, right? What's your experience being in LA, being married, right? Like,
Yeah.
for me, like, I came here single, right? And
Right.
you see all the shiny objects and like, oh, this is
Shiny, women love being called shiny objects.
no, all the shiny objects, the lights, LA. And you're like overwhelmed with just LA, all the shiny objects,
Yeah.
not women. And then you find someone who's like, I got your back type of love. And like, it makes my whole experience in LA, I love it so much more because it's like, I don't have to deal with a lot of the noise, like to me
Right.
personally.
Right.
And like, I have someone who's got my back and like, we know like we're there for each other in this cool place.
Yeah.
What's your experience been like with that?
I think it's kind of, to me, it's more like having a partner in crime, right? It's like having someone that you can explore the city, you can take in the city with. And to me, that's so much more. I think it's important for you to explore Los Angeles on your own with your friends or by yourself. But it is nice to like be with someone who makes the experience of being in a city like more fun and more exciting.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, yeah, definitely. Just for the record, I'm not calling women shiny objects.
You're talking about the cars and
So
the
many
Everything.
shiny
Just
objects,
shiny objects.
out there. Yeah. So many of them.
So what are you working on now?
Really exciting, actually. I just co-created and wrote this podcast. It's a rom-com for your ears, which is why I'm like watching a lot of rom-coms right now.
awesome.
I co-created with New York Times bestselling author Jane Green, who's phenomenal and so cool. And it's called Bad Influencer, and it's coming to Emerald Audio. And it's a 9-part fiction series about a girl who dreams of becoming a famous influencer, and very much like 13 going on 30, wakes up and has that life and learns that it, just gets caught into like nonstop scandals, as most influencers do.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And we just recorded it in New York. So
so it's
it's in production. We're actually recording with one of we also have, while everything's fiction, we do have some celebrity guests that play themselves in this fiction world and make
So
cameos.
cool.
So we're recording one of those tomorrow, and then we are done with production and we go on to editing. And it should be coming out soon, I think in like April or May.
And
Amazing.
it'll be where will it be
Wherever
seen?
you listen to podcasts.
Wow,
Emerald
so
Audio is
cool.
the production company, and they've already done 2 other ones of these. But it's like weird to describe. It's like it's a movie, but you don't see it. You just hear everything. It's like
That's
an
cool.
audio immersive experience.
And then obviously you're with Giddy. How long have you been with
Yeah,
Giddy for?
Giddy, I started with them, I think it's been maybe 6 months. And it started because they reached out to me as a source for one of their articles. And I was like, hey, by the way, are you hiring? And they were. So that's how long I've been with them. It's
That's
been great.
awesome.
Yeah, I learned a lot through their articles.
So
amazing.
cool.
And you're still hosting, right?
I still host. I'm with Hollywire, so I do entertainment news for them on Samsung and on Snapchat.
Oh yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering why you
Oh,
were
that
so
was-
good
yeah.
on the mic, and I was like, oh, she's a pro.
Yeah, that's
So what about so this is interesting to me. How do you juggle all this stuff?
I mean, that's what being, I guess, a freelancer is all about. It's like you have to juggle out of necessity for like money, but also I enjoy doing it. And I guess I've always been someone who, I was a double major in college. I've always been that kid that like likes to have a lot of activities, but I'm also like hyper focused on what I do like and what I don't like. So if I had a job where I was doing things I didn't love, I don't think I would be as motivated as I am when I get to kind of like pick and choose the things I'm doing.
And do you have a good balance of like resetting on the weekend and working, or are you just like go?
I've been pretty much like go. But I'm trying to work at like taking days off, but it's kind of hard with writing because normally I'm like I'm normally write on
Yeah.
the weekends, and I probably shouldn't be. But
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you do something you love,
yeah.
you at times you don't feel like you're working ever.
It doesn't feel like work because you love it so much and you enjoy
Right.
it so much, but then you get sick like me because it's so funny the timing of it. It's like, oh yeah, I just finished this like project that I've been working on since October. Like, of course my body's like, okay, sinus infection.
Yeah, it makes sense. like you don't even feel you're gonna hit a wall,
No.
and like one day you wake up
Yeah.
and you're like, well, I need to just relax for a
Yeah,
day.
yeah. That's what I did yesterday. I did not get out of bed yesterday, and it was great. It was glorious.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't touched on?
I do like to ask
Yeah.
this really important question to
Sure.
me. If you could have one law in the world that the
Okay.
whole world had to follow,
Yeah.
could be as crazy as you want it to be, what would the law be?
Well, this feels more general, but just like kindness. And I've dealt with so much online bullying and harassment and just like such mean people on the internet. And it's like one thing to like leave a comment, but the amount of like DMs, and I open up every DM because more often those DMs are from people that have either read something I wrote or read my book and they're reaching out to me or they want advice, and my DMs are always open for that. But when I get people that just send me DMs and just decide that they are going to take time out of their day to tear me down, it's like I can't take it, and I really wish people were kinder.
There's so many good things about everything and so many bad things about it on the internet, right?
Right.
It's just this tool for people to just be so nasty when
And
there's no
hide
repercussion.
behind, and also hide behind avatars. Like the
Yeah.
people don't show their face, or sometimes they show their face and they would like, a lot of them like, you're so embarrassing. And then I would look at their profile and I'd be like, actually, these pictures are actually the definition of embarrassment. But I would never say that to your
Right.
face because I don't have that in my heart. Or mothers telling me to like off myself. Like, it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, we hear it all the time. Sometimes I have to turn comments off
Yeah,
of like ads
yeah.
and stuff because it's just really nasty. And it's like, in a way, I feel bad because we're doing what we love and like
Yeah.
we're so happy, and you feel the need to take us down.
And also the tagging employer really bugs me. And then the old thing bothers me too, because I don't think I'm old, but I love a lot of people that are older than me. And I just think to use that as a diss and to tell people they're irrelevant because of their age is just so messed up.
Yeah, and I would say like your haters are never people who are doing better than you.
Oh,
Like,
I
never.
know that. And I wish it didn't get to me. I guess I am like emotional.
But it's for other people too, right?
It's for other
Like-
people. It's like I get upset for other people. I get sad that mothers are taking time out of their day to do this. I'm sad for that loser that felt that is so obviously feels so low in his life that he needs to post something like that, Like in a way I feel sorry for them, but also it enrages me and it makes me mad that platforms like Twitter and Instagram don't take this more seriously. I can't tell you how many times I always report whenever I get harassed, and they never do anything, and their answer is always like, we have too much we can't possibly go through all of our requests.
And my biggest concern, because it doesn't bother me, like I
Yeah.
don't care, like whatever, but to like a 13-year-old or 14-year-old who's going through so many changes in life,
Yeah, to be dealing with that.
a few comments,
Yeah.
that could be it.
That could be it.
It's very sad.
And no, it has been. It has
Right.
been it. There's evidence of that. I don't know. I just wish there was a little bit more responsibility I also think that you shouldn't be able to hide behind an avatar on social media. I think the verification, I think everyone should have that, and you should have your face, you should have who you are, and also you should be kinder to people on the internet.
Yeah, I agree.
Where can people find you on social media?
It's Gabi Conti on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter. I don't really use my TikTok. My Instagram's my big platform, and then GabiConti.com has links to my book and all that other stuff.
Awesome.
So,
and we
yeah.
get to keep that book.
That's your book. That's
Thank
your
you.
copy.
Appreciate that.
Yes, of course.
Awesome, Gabby. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Appreciate it.